I'm Rex Rogosh, and let's queer up the USA view. The Pentagon spent more on Lobster in a month than on transgender troop healthcare all year. A new watchdog analysis is raising questions about U.S. military spending priorities. According to a report from the government accountability group Open the Books, the Pentagon spent $93.4 billion on grants and contracts in September 2025 alone, the largest single-month spending total ever recorded by a federal agency. The surge happened under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth during the final month of the fiscal year, when agencies often rush to use remaining funds under the long-criticized use it or lose it budgeting practice. The report highlights several unusual purchases, including $6.9 million spent on lobster, $2 million on Alaskan king crab, and $15.1 million on ribeye steak in a single month. Other spending includes 272 doughnut orders totaling $139,224 and $124,000 for ice cream machines. The Pentagon also spent $225.6 million on furniture and $1.8 million on musical instruments, including a $98,329 Steinway grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's residence. Critics note that spending comes as Trump's administration argues in court that medical care for transgender service members is too costly. Pentagon data shows that transgender health care costs about $5.2 million per year, a tiny fraction of the military's more than $1 trillion annual budget, and certainly way less than that was spent on lobsters. Where do I start? I would like to actually see the books and see the numbers. It's one thing to report it, and it's, I hate to say this, but, so much of what I see in the news, I believe about half of it. Secondly, I know, from bidding on government projects before, a lot of times you have to pad them because they do have to spend the money, which I'm not saying is right. I would question why a grand piano costs $98,000. I also question why it's going to the person's house and not in the Pentagon itself. Okay. And that's the bigger question: is why is it going to someone's house?
And the thing is, these are extraneous. Look, I'm not opposed to giving our armed forces members, something good to eat.
Absolutely.
So, the lobster tails and the ribeyes, they're all fine. The question I do have is $200-something million in furniture.
This has nothing to do with furniture or lobster or grand. This is about trying to stop giving trans people health care. Now, I just want to put some perspective on the $5.2 million figure. Remember, a U.S. interceptor missile to stop a drone coming from Iran costs $1 to $2 million. And every time Iran sends one of those $20,000 to $50,000 drones, they got to send 2 missiles. So for every 3 drones Iran shoots at us, we spend the same amount of money that we'd spend on trans healthcare. Oh. And they send way more than 3 drones at us a day right now. Yeah. This is an absurd argument. And to the trans people in the military, if you can get out now, because we're going to start committing war crimes, and you deserve better than being involved in all of this right now.
Well, unfortunately, I think many of the trans people have been forced out of the military. And, the fact, like you said, $5 million is a drop in the bucket. But one of the things that would be interesting for a future story is to see, under the prior administration, no matter what you think of the Biden administration, what the spending was militarily compared to what we're looking at now.
And let's point also out that the ridiculousness of the quote, use it or you lose it budget practice. If a government body has a surplus, it should go back to the Treasury, not to be spent on $98,000 grand piano. By the way, is the grand piano crusted in rhinestone or something?
Just like the Oval Office.
Because, at this point it has to be gold plated. Yep. And
there's not only government, but there's a lot of money out there in the world that's a use it or lose it, unfortunately. And yes, I agree. It needs to.
But government should be different.
I 100% agree. And, to your point that a lot of, trans people have already been forced out, we also have to think that they still have care outside of the military. And technically, they're now a veteran. So they are going to be getting government care the VA is not the best. However, they're still going to be getting care.
Actually, trust me, the administration
VA not doing very well with healthcare.
In general, they don't.
But also, I'm pretty sure the Trump administration have been trying to restrict trans healthcare in the VA system.
And that's where the hypocrisy is, because in prior stories on this show, we've talked about gender affirming care and the hypocrisy that will continue for federal employees who are heterosexual.
Correct.
And not for our trans family members in our community.
Anytime you take a hormone replacement therapy, no matter if you're cisgender or trans, that's gender affirming. And you know that, there's a certain side of the political spectrum who loves their testosterone therapy, or the hormones they inject in their bodies. And, I'm not going to say which side, but those are all gender affirmative therapy.
Regardless, veterans, especially now that we're getting into yet another unnecessary war of aggression, of course they deserve the best care.
Exactly.
I remember people that went to Iraq and Afghanistan, because I'm of that age group. I know I don't look at kids, but I am. We're we were the first group to go to Iraq. They would it is a very traumatizing experience to go through those sorts of wars and post-traumatic stress disorder is real. I have had gay friends that have gone to pride events and we don't know where they are because they had a flashback. They thought they were back in Afghanistan. And the idea that we would deny any service member any type of medical care, especially when we've put them through such unnecessary acts of war, is appalling. And Trump and every member of Congress who's not taking this seriously shall be ashamed of themselves. Fix it, people. You can do better.
Well, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.